In the first demo application we built, I gave you one CSS file that contained the styles for all components. That works for a small demo, but not necessarily for a bigger project. There, you typically want to have different CSS files for your different components. And hence the CSS file which I provided to you here is very slim. Now, when it comes to styling the different components, it would be even nicer if the styles set up in a specific CSS file would then be scoped to the component to which they belong. So it would be nice if next to main navigation, we could add, let's say, a main navigation.css file, and then define the styles in that file that belong to this main navigation.js file. And they should not affect any other component. That's something you often want because in bigger React projects, you often work with hundreds or thousands of components, and you want to make sure that your styles don't clash with each other. Now, the good thing is that Create React App, this tool which we used for creating this project, gives us a project that has a feature built in that allows us to scope styles to components. And that feature is called CSS modules. It's a behind-the-scenes code transformation which will make sure that we can attach CSS files to specific components. For this, we first of all need to name our CSS files in a certain way. We need to make sure that they end with .module.css. So in this case, the file is named main navigation.module.css. And then in main navigation.js, we can import from this CSS file. That certainly looks strange, and it's not something that would work in standard JavaScript. But since we have this extra build step here, which parses and transforms our code before it reaches the browser, we can actually import from CSS. And that is what we're already doing in index.js, by the way. We're importing a CSS file, and behind the scenes, that will tell the build process that this CSS code should be injected into the loaded page as well. We can do the same here in main navigation.js, but now to attach this styling or this style file and its classes to this component, we don't import just main navigation.module.css like this, but instead we import something, for example, classes, this name is up to you, from this file. Now I named it classes because this something here, which we import, will actually be a JavaScript object where all the CSS classes you define in this CSS file will be properties of this object. And you can then use them in your JSX code to attach those classes to your elements. And behind the scenes, everything will be transformed such that those class names are made unique per component. So let me give you an example. We could go to the header JSX element here and add the class name prop and set this not to a hard-coded string, but instead to a dynamic value with curly braces and set it equal to classes.header. Now we can add a class named header, because here I'm accessing header on classes, to this CSS file. And any styles we define in here would then only affect this component here. So if I save this and I gave this a red color, you see now that's colored red. And if I had another header class in another component, it would not be red because the styles are scoped, as I just explained. Now the goal is here not to make this red, but instead I prepared some other styles for you, which you find attached. You find a main navigation.module.css file attached, and you can simply replace your main navigation.module CSS file with mine. Now in here I defined a bunch of styles for you, and therefore we now just have to wire them up to the elements. We already added the header class to the header. On this div with the logo text, you should add classes.logo, and that's actually it already. And with that, if you save this, let me zoom out a bit, now we got this good looking navigation bar at the top here. By the way, it's not optimized for mobile since this is not really a CSS course, but I want to focus on React instead. But now with that, we added this nice navigation bar, and we added it such that we have component-specific styles which are also scoped to this component.